Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started.
Are you tired of not making it as an artist? Or maybe you just love art? Then listen to the new Crackerjack podcast called The Living Artist Podcast.
Wait a minute. What podcast?
Yeah, I know. If you loved that, you're going to love the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith of PMS Artwork. We're going to talk about how to make it as an artist and all things creative. Don't make your own mistakes. Learn from mine. And don't wait till you're dead. Help me break the starving artist stigma. Come on over and listen to the Living Artist Podcast now.
And yes, there's voices.
What are you waiting for? Just do it already.
For those of you who think that you just stepped into the Twilight Zone, you didn't. That was an actual advertisement. I like to say advertisement. That was an actual ad that I put together recently for the show that I'm airing currently on Spotify. Airing. Look at how fancy I am. Well, it's an ad that I just basically put out on Spotify. I was doing a couple iterations of it, and, you know, I always want to keep it real. Real talk, y'all. I always want to keep it real and let you know what's going on, what's happening in real life, in real time, and that's something that I was doing. I just thought, hey, put it on the podcast, see what everybody thinks about it. And it's interesting because it's one of those things where you realize in the editing process how much you have to cut down to fit into a time slot. I realized when I was recording this on GarageBand that they have a different counter in here, and I just took that as normal seconds. And oh boy, was I wrong. So I was like, oh, I did an ad. It was 26 seconds. It'll be perfect. And then I tried to put it on Spotify, and it was 51 seconds. So I was way off, and I had to cut out everything, all the meat of it. Well, not really. I mean, I cut it down. I think I did a good job, but it was, a lot of hair pulling and, oh my God, I got to cut this down. I got to cut this down. I got to cut this completely out. So, I'm happy with the result, and I'm going to play it for you right now. It's a little bare bones, but I think it works. I think it gets all the information out. Let me know what you think. Here we go. The Living Artist Podcast, Spotify ad, take 2, and action.
Are you tired of not making it as an artist? Then listen to the new Crackerjack podcast called The Living Artist Podcast.
Wait a minute. What podcast?
Yeah, I know. If you loved that, you're going to love the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith of PMS Artwork. Don't wait till you're dead. Come on over and listen to the Living Artist Podcast now.
And yes, there's voices.
What are you waiting for?
So there you have it. That's the second one. It's pretty good. Pretty good. It's pretty okay. I'm happy with it. Whatever. It's the best you can do with living under those kind of constraints. We always talk about constraints here. We always talk about what you're working on, being creative. And I figured, hey, I'd just share with you. I'd share both versions. Why not? Hey, after all, this is why you have a podcast. I haven't really heard of another show that shows you the ad process or their process of putting together an ad and different versions of it. And maybe you don't find it interesting and maybe you do, but there it is. So if you are listening to Spotify and you hear my ad come up, you can be like, hey, I heard the original version of that. Then you can go live your life and completely erase it from your memory. But anyway, there it is. A little behind the scenes action for you. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about staying motivated, because motivation is something that plagues us all, I think. I mean, I don't have blocks, creative blocks or anything like that, but I do get knocked on my ass by depression and setbacks, mood setbacks, like everybody else. And I think recently, I don't know if you all are going through this, but it's been bizarre recently with the resurgence of the virus, which will not be named, and the variant, the plane variant, which will not be named, and how everybody's kind of going crazy again with it. And we are starting to feel like cut off and afraid again. And it just feels like a bit demoralizing. It feels like, oh, I thought we were over this. I thought we were moving forward. I thought we were getting out of this and getting back to real life and, getting on the beach and living up the summer and enjoying the summertime. And before you know it, we are kind of back to not square one, but we're back to the shit, for lack of a better term. So I've been feeling a little bit of that malaise again and just kind of like, oh man, like, does it even matter what we're doing? And of course it does matter, but it seems to be something that you just have to power through. It just feels like we don't have any other choice. But how do you power through it? How do you get motivated? How do you stay motivated and feel like what you're doing matters while this is all going on? Because look, it really does matter. As we talked about at the beginning, art matters and it helps people. It helps people cope. It helps people get through it. It helps people stay inspired. It helps me stay inspired. Let's talk a little bit about motivation.
Yeah. You gotta keep it motivated.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't have the rights to play that song, but I wanted to get it in there somehow. It's ridiculous how many tracks I put. That's like 5 tracks that I put on here. Today's all about behind the scenes. Screw motivation. Come behind the scenes with me on a day in the life of the Living Artist Podcast. Everybody's turning off the podcast right now. So motivation, getting back to it. I want to share a few things that just kind of get me revved up and get me motivated to keep creating, keep doing what I'm doing, even when I don't feel like it or feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders or feel like, you're not getting the attention that you need in the art world or people aren't reciprocating something to you or look, the world's just gone to shit with the new airline variant and, you're just not feeling it. You're just feeling down in the dumps. You're feeling like, man, it doesn't matter. So I just wanted to share with you a couple things that I do. These are not like push button fixes, quick fixes. Oh, I hit this button and now I'm motivated again and now I'm ready to take on the world. No, these are more mindset shifts. These are more almost like what you would do when you're meditating or if you have a mantra to kind of get you centered. Look, I'm very aware that sometimes you just need to chill the fuck out and take a breath, take a beat and relax. Sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you just need to sit with it all, get centered in that way and process it in that way and just be silent. That's fine. I understand that. And I've done that as well. But I'm talking about staving off and fighting off that whole momentum that can take you down the rabbit hole of depression and get you just be like, well, I'm not even doing this anymore. I don't see the purpose anymore. I don't see my purpose as an artist. And let's face it, as artists, we're kind of in the energy game. It's all about energy. If you're not creating at a high energy level, and that energy level can be from anger or hatred or joy, jubilation, whatever you want to say, but that is a high energy level. You need to be creating at that level, I think, to be creating something well and to be sustaining some sort of output for your artistic career, to be able to keep doing what you're doing and succeed. So when your energy is stifled, that's kind of like kryptonite to us. So I've been going through a series of energy stifling moments recently, and that's what kind of got me sparked to talk about this in this episode. There's a lot of stuff going on, like we talked about in the world right now with the airline variant and with social unrest and whatever. But I think people are they've had enough, and some people react to that differently. And I've noticed a lot of stuff with people and companies where people have just kind of given up and customer service has gotten horrible and people aren't really following through on things that they say they're going to follow through on, whether that's from a personal standpoint, like a friendship level, or from a business standpoint. I've had some things happen that just should have never happened. For example, I won't name any names, but I had my biggest sale to date just kind of fizzle out for no reason, just based on lack of communication. And it was really tragic, actually, because it was a major sale for me, a huge sale. And for all I know, it's still happening. But whoever this entity is not communicating with me. And at this point, I think it's just dead. So that was very stifling for me. And it set me back. And I've been having to deal with a lot of, small versions of that with a lot of different entities recently. And I think a lot of people are. And I just think it's kind of piling up. And I feel as a society, people are starting to just go, well, screw it. If nobody's going to give me the energy, I'm not going to give them the energy. So how do we rise above that as artists? Well, one thing we can do, and this is one mindset shift for me, is transmutation. Now, I've talked about transmutation in the past, but I think it's really relevant right now for what we do. And that's when you take an emotion, a negative emotion, typically, and you turn it into something positive. Like you harness it as fuel. And I've done that many times in my career. That's actually how I was able to start out as an artist in general. I took a lot of stuff from my past and I transmuted it into good art and positive art, and not always positive, but cathartic art. Something that was able to exercise things that I was dealing with and to get them out on the canvas or whatever on the surface, and maybe can impact other people where they can recognize that in themselves and then be inspired to either do the same or at least feel better about themselves. So that's transmutation. And I think we can all do that right now. I think we can harness some of our anger and our betrayal and a lot of the things that are happening right now where we feel kind of stifled and depressed, and just turn that into good art and harness that. I see it a lot with anger. It's kind of like, well, oh yeah, you're giving me this? Well, I'm going to take this, I'm going to harness it, and I'm going to use it as fuel and turn this into art. I'm going to rise above it, basically. Like, it's a mindset shift of, you cannot keep me down, you cannot suppress me, you cannot repress me. I am going to rise above. Like, this cannot affect me. And I think that's a really powerful mindset shift to have. It's a really powerful mindset to have in general as an artist, because if you can really do that, if you can sustain that, if you can have that almost be your mantra, then nothing can really get in your way. And this doesn't just have to be in bad times or times like this where we're going through a global pandemic, but it can be in normal times. Just the art world is getting you down. There's all these gatekeepers who are trying to keep you out, and people who are not giving you the time or recognizing your talent. Well, it's like the old Steve Martin quote, just become so good, you basically become undeniable, where nobody can deny you. So you just, okay, we go back to the lab, like Eminem, back to the lab and hone your craft and just rise above it. When you come back out to that person next time, they're like, holy shit, who is this person? They might not even recognize you or realize that they turned you down the first time because they're just blown away. And that's another form of transmuting this negativity into positivity, or at least into workflow that can then get you those opportunities down the road. So that is mindset shift 1. Mindset shift 1. Mindset shift 2. Try saying that a couple times. Mindset shift 2. Mindset shift 2 would be something that's a little more playful. This is a little more imaginary. It's almost like tackling this as a game, because it's all a game. Just play, have fun with it. The thing that I sometimes trip out on a lot in my art career is how you can kind of make it your own. You can make your dreams your reality on any level. It's similar with entrepreneurs in general, but I think we just have so much space to grow and achieve as artists. The sky's the limit. And it's really interesting because sometimes I just sit in my chair when I'm meditating, I put some music on, and I just start thinking of all the possibilities, like almost all the things that I can just manifest into reality. It's crazy. Sometimes I get so jazzed by that it just motivates me to be like, that's right, I'm going to just start coming up with these crazy ideas that I can do this variation or this variation or this idea, or I can try this avenue. I can get this person, employ this person, and try coming at it from all these different angles. And it's just so interesting and so exciting to see the possibilities of all that, because we can truly, if you can think it and you can put some effort and some energy and some fire behind that, you can almost make anything happen. It's really true. And if it doesn't happen right away, it's just pressure over time. You try these things, a combination of like throwing all these things against the wall, these good ideas against the wall, seeing what sticks, and pressure over time. And you'll be surprised. Like even right now, looking back, I was talking to my wife the other day about what I've already achieved in my career. And look, I have all these other goals and new goals, and I never get complacent with that. But it was really interesting to be like, man, honestly, 10 years ago, I didn't have hope that I would be able to even achieve what I've already achieved. And that's amazing. And that just shows the possibility. And now it's like, okay, now I'm like thinking 10xing that and doing all these different things, and the possibilities are endless. So that's another mindset shift of just possibility and play and almost like manifestation and daydreaming, dreaming it, visualization. That's a really fun game to get into. And you'll be surprised at how that can transform your mood into something positive. So the mindset shift 3 that I want to talk about is kind of a new one for me, but it's really powerful. And it's something that I think I'm working on right now. I'm going to start employing it a bit. And you won't read about this one in books. This is not in your self-help books. I don't know if the other ones are either, but this one's kind of something that I've just started to harness myself. And it's interesting because I started thinking about my ancestry and all the people that have come before me, like my Irish ancestors and my Norwegian ancestors, and what they went through and all the trials and tribulations of having to leave their country to come to this country to make a better life and to have a better situation in general. And, just my connection with, like, let's just take my grandmother, for example. My grandmother is such a, positive influence. Well, she was a positive influence in my life. She passed many years ago, but we had such a strong connection. And she had such a vibrant energy, and, her life wasn't perfect, but she passed on to me some sort of like can-do, fun, playful, energetic, endless possibilities attitude. And, for her, like, I want to do her justice. I want to do her and my ancestors justice. It's like what all these people struggled and, went through all this torment and, made this trip over the seas to the New World. And some of them probably had to deal with certain injustices and humiliations and bigotry and all this stuff, like just to try to make it here. They thought they were coming over here to such a wonderful new opportunity. And then you get here and it's like, oh, nope, you got to start from the bottom. So when I feel that, and I really, really internalize that, and I feel the connection with my ancestors, my past, and even people who I had an experience with in my own life, not just pictures or stories you hear, but like tangibly had experience with my grandmother, for example, and then down to your parents and yourself. It's just like you owe it to yourself, and it's like your ancestors are almost cheering for you to make it happen. You are a byproduct of them, of their struggles, of what they tried to come over here and achieve. And yes, it might feel like that's putting some pressure on you, but I don't look at it that way. I don't look at it like, oh my God, I have the pressure of all these generations and generations, but really that it's like a privilege to show how far, we've come and what we can achieve. And it's almost like righting certain wrongs that have happened in the past. And that can be extremely powerful. Now, if this one doesn't work for you and you feel too much pressure, then, just think about the other ones. There's plenty there to go with. But I know this has been a hard time for everybody, and I feel it like it's tangible. I can feel it from a lot of different people, a lot of different artists and friends and businesses that I even deal with. There's just something missing these days. So if we can kind of put that back in there, we can kind of build it back up. And at least for ourselves, maybe we can become a little bit impervious to the madness that is happening right now. At very least, we can get that out of it. So kind of a heavy one today, but also inspirational. This is something that I think I've needed right now, and I'm sure a lot of you need it right now as well. And give one of these or some of these a try if you're feeling down in the dumps, or you're feeling the same malaise that I've been going through a bit, or if you're just having a problem getting motivated right now. Try some of these out and let me know if they work for you. Reach out on social media, and I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's coping. I hope everybody's being kind to each other. Let's talk again soon. I got some really cool interviews coming up. I got a big one coming up that I'm really excited about, that it is in the works right now, but you'll know it when it gets released, so stay tuned for that. Hope you all got something out of this today, and looking forward to seeing you next time.
The Living Artist Podcast has been brought to you by The Living Artist Podcast. Hear it now on, you guessed it, The Living Artist Podcast.
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.